Hello and welcome to This Naked Chat, a podcast where 6 friends from different walks of life come together for honest, unscripted conversations about living alcohol-free and everything that comes with it. We all met at a live event hosted by Annie Grace of This Naked Mind in March of 2024. What started as a mastermind group with the 6 of us and Annie turned into some really deep friendships, filled with connection, tough conversations, and a lot of laughter. And after a year of growing and learning together, we realized that these conversations might help more than just us. So here we are, no scripts, just real talk. We are incredibly grateful to Annie and This Naked Mind for helping us get this off the ground and for the impact that her work has had on each of our lives. I am Brian, and I am joined by Kori, Agnes, Judi, Jenie, and Sammie. Let's dive in.
Go punch a bag, Kori.
Yeah.
Hey, everybody. There we go.
Hey,
Hi, Brian.
How's everyone doing today?
Good. How are you?
Yeah? Lovely. Here's a hat. Let's see. Ready? And here we go. Oh, I need stronger readers. I keep saying that.
How to say this podcast is for old people without saying this podcast is for old people.
Yeah, I need 2.0. All right. So this will be interesting. Kids and talking about alcohol and drugs.
Oh.
Nice little light conversation for today.
Oh my gosh. I literally just heard the other day. So, you know, there's all kinds of schools of thought about this whole exposure to drugs and alcohol. And like, I just heard somebody the other day talking about this, how they had the house where, you know, they were really open and they said, well, you know, if you're going to do it at my house. You know, like I will, you know, I'll be the place where you can do it, you know? And, I just struggle with that. I mean, I don't know. I'm not saying I have the right answer, but I sure do struggle with that.
Did we all grow up in and Agnes, I don't know if that's this way in Canada, but with the, what was it? We had the drugs, the eggs in the pan. This is your brain on drugs,
this is your
right?
brain on drugs.
What was the alcohol one? I just saw something on it. It's the Dare stuff, right?
Yeah, right. The Nancy Reagan, yeah. And, you know, I have written about this. That campaign, that Just Say No campaign, was so ineffective that some of the cohorts that got exposed to the campaign actually used drugs at a higher rate than the ones that did.
And not just a little bit higher, but like dramatically higher.
Yeah. I mean, that some of the cohorts, it was about even Steven, but like, and so the speculation why that is that because that Just Say No campaign sort of made it seem like there's drugs everywhere, you know, and that, and so the message that kids got was like, well, if it's everywhere, is it really that bad? Like there was just kind of this whole normalization thing that happened with it. So they didn't get the message, don't do it. They got the message of, you know, well, you guys are just trying to trick me because it's everywhere and it must not be that bad, you know? And so that's the thing I have a hard time, I think, with the whole parents just like inviting it in their house thing. I mean, I understand like they're super worried for their safety and they don't want kids to like, you know, go do drugs and alcohol without them. And I totally appreciate that, like wanting to protect your kid, you know, to that degree that you're so worried for their physical safety. But also just the like normalizing of it is hard, right? I mean, we all struggle with that, thinking that, hey, alcohol is just fine, you know?
And so we don't all have to share this, but I think that was probably my experience more than anything. Is my parents seemed to take more of a you'll figure it out on your own type an approach. And even I know the first time I kind of got caught maybe drinking, they didn't really even say anything. What they made me, we were up early, we were traveling to a tennis tournament, and what they made me do without telling me that they knew I had been drinking the night before was they made me pick up all the rotten apples under our apple trees in like 90-degree weather, just to like kind of be like, how's that feel, dumbass? And so it wasn't really that effective, though, I don't think, for me. And that's where I think maybe, I don't know what everyone's experience is, but it would be interesting to think like what I really needed to know at that point, you know, which was probably some experience, but also the, you know, for me, it was probably why don't you compare how you feel with and without almost of a thing, you know? They did that with tobacco too, by the way. I wanted Skull Bandits, you know, the little pouches. And they're like, oh, you do? So they just bought me a can, and then I got very sick. I was like, well, that actually was quite effective, but probably not maybe not the best approach for either of them.
So the question is then, how did they communicate about anything?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, when you think about, what's the role of a parent as far as alcohol is to educate the child, but also what's the role of a parent is to teach a child, right? And if they're not communicating with you about other stuff, why would alcohol be any different? Is my thought about that.
And I think they just pick up on the whole hypocrisy of the whole thing, right? Like, do as I say, not as I do thing, right? I mean, teenagers especially are totally keen into that. Like, why are you telling me not to do this? You freaking do this every day. Like, so, you know, I don't know. And
that's a good point, Kori, is most of when I was, I was probably like 7th, 8th, 9th grade at this level. My friends that I stayed at his house a lot, and his parents had a lot of parties and had like a lot of liquor, but one of them was peach schnapps. So I'd see them all drinking it, and so we'd go nip that, you know? So it was kind of like they were almost setting that example for us while telling us, hey, don't touch this. This is ours. That's really interesting.
Mommy's juice. This is mommy's juice.
Yeah.
You can't have it. It's mommy's juice.
I remember it being so confusing too. Like, you know, everybody would drink. My mom was a teetotaler, but everybody else drank. And so there was always this conflict of like, hey, everybody is having fun, but my mom is kind of being shitty about it. You know, like, why does she not want people to have fun? And then, but conversely, it was still, you know, it was fun at first, but then it was like really scary, you know, after people started drinking, and it was chaotic and all of that. And so it was just all kinds of, you know, conflicting messages about alcohol and what it would do to you. And yeah.
Interesting. You're right. That's, I think, probably how it was displayed as me, is I saw the parties and I'm like, oh, that sounds fun. That looks fun. But then I also, you know, found my dad after a couple like bowling nights where he might have gotten sick from the beer. And I'm like, what's that? That sounds terrible. So that's a mixed message.
Yeah. Actions speak louder than words. So it's what I've noticed is for me, it's either you're going to do it or you're not going to do it. So it's either whatever your parents are doing, you're going to either follow suit with that, and then you'll follow suit to some extent with your kids, or you're going to try to do the opposite. But again, you know, weekend drinking was normal. That's how it is. It's, you know, it's get together with friends. So always get togethers with friends, and always drinking, and drinking got out of hand. But again, there's no issue with that. And that's how I continued on. So I did exactly the same thing that my parents did in that regards. But I didn't want my kids to drink alcohol. So my daughter's the oldest, so she was not allowed. I would not allow her, where all her other friends would be their parents would give them a cooler because they feel like, well, if I provide it, at least I'm controlling it and I know what they're drinking. So I'd rather give a cooler than hard liquor or whatever the reasoning is. And I was like, I'm not giving you any of this because I don't condone it. And you're not drinking at my house. So no one's allowed to bring booze here either. So again, that's how I was. But then once the second one comes around, then you get a little bit easier and you're like, okay, everyone is doing it. And then you see the impact that it makes, because it's like the child feels like they're excluded from the friend group or whatever they're going through. And then you feel like, man, now I'm making them deal with all of this and I'm drinking. So is it really that bad? And I just noticed that. And then with my third, he's drinking. So again, the total opposite of the first one. So I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, but I've seen so many different ways of parenting. People providing it, or all the parties, or have the parties at my house so I can control it. All of it. But I think that one way or another, it's really how you use alcohol sort of is the direction that the children around you use it. So they start following suit to some extent.
Judi, you mentioned this too, to that point about what is the conversation. Like, it seems like maybe, Agnes, you guys did have a conversation. It's almost like my parents didn't even have the conversation. They were just like, figure it out yourself. How do you think, this was kids and talking about alcohol and drugs. Do you think there's like a sharing your personal experiences, or is there something that maybe sticks out to you when you were saying about talking about the conversation, Judi?
Well, like Agnes said, actions speak louder than words, right? And until you're ready, I would think, as a parent, I'm just looking at this in regards to watching my nieces and nephews imbibe a lot. You can talk all you want, but if your behaviors are different than what you say, what are people going to follow?
Yeah.
Especially your kids. What are they going to follow? Right? I mean, and then, when we get together and it's like, oh, I remember the days. Oh, that was so stupid of me. I don't know why I did that. And I say those things to the kids and they look at me, well, Aunt Juju did it. I guess it's okay for me to do it. And then I leave there and go, why did I say all of that? Right? I should have just kept my mouth shut. But I mean, there's also stories, like I'll talk with them sometimes about different drug use. And in my relaying those stories, they tell me their feelings about it. And then we can have a conversation. I mean, and on my side of it, I don't do that stuff. Right? Yeah. So now I did. So I can teach what I learned, but that doesn't mean really, to Agnes's point, actions speak louder than words. Yeah. So communicate all you want, but if you're gonna pour yourself a martini after that, not gonna happen.
Yeah, well, that was like if I came home. So again, drinking was okay, but for instance, if I was caught smoking, okay, now I'm gonna get punished for that. Because smoking wasn't allowed in the house. That was not allowed. Again, it's really, and then I've seen families where their parents' pot was just a part of it. It was smoking marijuana was normal. The parents would go and they would smoke their marijuana. And I see the kids. So they adapted to that. So they're all marijuana smokers. So maybe not as much alcohol, but for sure the marijuana. So I don't know. It's a tough one because, again, it's like, why is everyone doing it? Like, it's socially acceptable. Why is everyone doing it? And what are we showing that we all need to unwind, again, have fun, things aren't, as much fun. So I've gone through that from drinking and being the party person. I'm talking about dancing on tables. Oh yeah, you would catch me. I'd get everyone dancing. Everyone's dancing by the time.
I can't see that, Agnes.
No, I know.
No, right? I can't. 100%.
So, and now it's like I'm not drinking. So guess what? everyone else is sort of, they're drinking and they're waiting for that party girl because they don't want to start. I was the entertainment. Now the entertainment has stopped and they don't know how to, it's just so different. So I feel it on both ends. So again, I don't know.
How do we here's an interesting, listening to these, you guys, here's an interesting story. I have a very, very dear friend in Italy, right? And I'm telling her about all the work we do and this and that and the other thing. And she says to me, Judi, I don't understand what all this problem is with you guys with alcohol. Because even though, I mean, she grew up with wine on the table, everybody, she said, we don't have, and she's in, I mean, she's a TV director. I mean, so she's in all of those places where if you're going to drink, people drink, right? And she says, we don't have this issue. What is your problem? And I said, if I knew that, wouldn't I be a millionaire? But it's just interesting, isn't it? That they grew up with it on, I mean, everything, wine, you have this, you have that. And they don't, when I was over there, the kids, oh, you have wine with dinner, but nobody got inebriated. And it's just very interesting to me.
This episode is sponsored by The Path by This Naked Mind. It's a year-long program that combines expert guidance, daily support, and a connected community to help you take back control of your drinking so that you can wake up without regret, trust yourself again, and live a life that doesn't revolve around alcohol. Unlike the programs that focus on your behavior alone, The Path helps you eliminate the desire to drink using science-backed content, world-class coaching, and a compassionate community that really, truly gets it. So you can feel confident and in control of your relationship with alcohol without shame, without rules, and without missing out on the things that matter most. And in 2025, support is more accessible than ever before with live online coaching calls every hour on the hour from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern, Monday through Saturday. No matter where you are in the world or what your day looks like, support is always there, right in your back pocket. Learn more and start your path to freedom at nakedmindpath.com.
Yeah, you're right. It's like, I mean, it seems like as it relates to our kids and even in the cultural differences, like we use the way we use alcohol, right, is to treat, right, an underlying issue. And so like with your kids, you know, the alcohol is probably, and drugs for that matter, is probably not really the issue, right? It's really just the fact of whether or not you're talking to your kids or not, and like, you know, what they see you do and just the whole cultural attitude. And so it's kind of the same way, you know, places where, yeah, everybody has a glass of wine at night, but that's it. Like the social expectation is that it is a glass of wine and that it is not a social lubricant. It is not to treat a, you know, underlying, you know, mental health issue. Like the whole attitude and use of it is just fundamentally different.
Yeah, and I agree with you on that, Kori, because it's again, it's the stress. It's unwinding. I saw it as this is what you do when you get together with people. And this is what you do to relax because the week's been hard and there's a lot of pressures. So everyone seems to be stressed out. So it's how do you deal with that stress? So you unwind, and that's what you use alcohol for. So that's what I saw, and that's what I used it for, is completely for that reason. So if there was something else that I could use the stress for, then maybe I wouldn't end up feeling like I need to drink that much. And then you find people who will do the same thing around you, because again, it's not comfortable being that person in that room, just like you mentioned, Kori, your mom, right? Because you sit there and it is different. It's a totally different experience now watching, being that sober person. And it's like you see it, and then you can see how, depending on how many drinks they're in, then at some point it's like, yeah, I don't want this. So again, that doesn't feel good either. So socially, you know, you start gearing towards people who maybe aren't drinking. and if you're drinking, you want to be around the people who are drinking. And the kids will find exactly the same thing when it comes to any kind of thing. But so I actually, with some friends this weekend that I was with, we actually had this conversation about alcohol, because a couple of them are not drinking now either. But not they never had a drinking issue. They just chose for health-wise not to do it and stuff like that. But it was interesting because we were talking about kids and all of that. And again, it comes down to like, I see, which I don't know what the statistics are now, and I don't even know how they would figure that out, but the younger generation isn't drinking as much here in Canada anyways, or around what I'm noticing through my kids and their friend groups and stuff. They're not drinking as much, but where the trend has turned to is, again, it's edibles. It's because marijuana is legalized. Guess what? So it doesn't matter. They're just changing substance. So there's that, which they're actually possibly even doing more, because it's very easy to smoke whatever. I don't even know what they call them now. We used to call them
Doobies.
joints. Oh,
No, I don't know. I don't know.
I don't think anybody calls them that anymore.
Yeah, but you smoke that before you go to work. First thing you do, you wake up and you have that, So that's a problem, but it's not considered a problem.
You just made me think, both of you and Judi, the whole cultural thing where, like, there's a TED Talk, I can't think of who did it right now, and he talks about this experiment that his whole thesis is that use and addiction is a function of isolation. And so he refers to this experimentation on mice where, the mice that they isolated would continue to go hit the water bottle that had, I forget, whatever drug in it. Doobies. And so, yes, exactly. And so, to Judy's point about her friend in Italy, that it's just, so like the whole culture is different, right? Like depending on, I think Italy largely is this, having been there, like there's just more social connection in general, like a lot of towns, you walk everywhere, you see people every day, you don't, you go get groceries every single day. Like you have that kind of consistent social interaction, and it's just so vastly different from here. We don't have that. It's, I literally, I'm as bad as anybody. I barely drive my car. I barely go anywhere because I work out of my house. I exercise out of my house. Like, and I don't have to go. Shit, I can get groceries delivered to me every day. You know what I mean? Like, I don't have to go anywhere. I just think in America, it's just so different. And so our use of drugs and alcohol is different.
I wonder. Go ahead, Judi.
Well, I was just going to say, that's the whole bit about addiction in and of itself, right? It isolates. Addiction isolates, and if we're already isolated, and then, that's the hard part. Like, in my mind, any people that have been successful in moving through their dependency on any substance is building relationship with, so our job, if we're with someone who's isolated, our job is to help them. Oh, this can be a healthy relationship, right? And with anyone, you can have a healthy relationship. Now move on and you can expand it. But if someone doesn't understand, this is what a healthy relationship is. Unfortunately, many people grow up without those healthy relationships.
Amen. Mm-hmm.
And when you have that, why the bottle won't argue with you, or the substance won't argue with you at the time.
That's where I'm wondering, the more we talk about this and the more, like we're saying, our behaviors will pattern for our children, if this is much more about a conversation that maybe is happening more nowadays. It certainly wasn't in my days, but about more like mental, physical health. Is that something that people are having with their kids, to say, you look, I don't even, like, for me, it might have even been an admission of like, look, here's why I drank. Because it was 100% what you're saying, Judi. I felt isolated at home, so I would go to a bar to get connection, and that would be something that I would say, or I could say. And I'm wondering if it's more of like that sort of, almost these sort of things are a byproduct of maybe how we're feeling sometimes, let alone, like, to Agnes's point too, I've used them to relax or after a stressful day, but here's some other methods that mommy's trying. I don't know what that would look like, but seems like a bigger conversation.
I think too, the fundamental challenge of being a kid is feeling isolated. You spend your entire school day trying to fit in somewhere, and it's a pretty fast track. If everybody's chewing edibles before school, well, I will too, because then I fit in, right? And in my head, I'm circling back to reflecting on how different our language is, if we just stick with alcohol, how different our language around alcohol use is now compared to 50 years ago for me, where we didn't have the language we do now. We certainly, some people did have the knowledge, but the rest of us didn't. And it has evolved so much that I wonder, and I don't have kids, so I don't know what happens in like primary school or middle school now, but I wonder if the time is ripe to start having those conversations again with that age group and earlier, and using this naked mind kind of language with kids. I think it just, I don't know, as you all were talking, I was just reflecting on just how dramatically it's evolved.
No, I think you're totally spot on with that, especially with like this naked mind language. Like, the fundamental issue is, in this feeling of isolation, is about love and acceptance, right? I mean, and that's what kids are looking for when they are looking for the group to do drugs with, is like, I just want somebody to love and accept me, no matter what. And like, if we are providing that for our kids, then, certainly teenage era is a whole different thing. But like, if we're giving that whole, and we have that whole environment of, I love you, I accept you, and, I'm trying to love. And, oh, by the way, we have to model that for ourselves, I will say, because it's one thing, again, with the hypocrisy, you can't be like, oh, I love you and accept you, and then, but you don't do that for yourself,
True that.
They see it, right? The modeling is the most important thing, like Judi was saying, do as I do.
Well, where do gangs come from? Right? Where it's all about, the family core, which society has destroyed, the family core doesn't exist. And so where does a child get that? So they go to school, and public school is overwhelmed. Teachers are overwhelmed by all of it. And teachers now are expected to be the parental beings that kids may not get at home. And they've got 30 kids in their classroom. I mean, that's a lot on a human being every day to put that out there. And so kids, and given, kids are like mind. I mean, hanging out with your teacher versus hanging out with your bud who's your same age. Well, there is that whole thing that Jenny's talking about. You got to fit in. How are you going to fit in? Well, everybody's eating edibles, so I'm going to do it because I want to fit in, and I don't want to be the one that's bullied all day long. We know how bully feels, and it's not fun.
Yeah, and the education on the alcohol in particular is so important, because growing up, I never heard that alcohol actually is a depressant. No one knows. So it's, again, if you're feeling isolated and you're feeling sad and you're feeling all these things, well, guess what? Alcohol is going to make you feel 100 times worse the next day or a few hours after, which then you'll continue drinking. So it's understanding that because we all have choices and options and no one's stuck with anything, so we could decide what we're doing, but understanding what those choices that we make, what is happening to us after that, and why it's happening to us. So hopefully we can make better informed. So find something else that's not going to feel that isolation. You're not going to get, because it's going to feel worse no matter what. So we don't talk about the effects of it and how it works within your mind and within your body. It goes to, after you have that drink at night, the next day, what do you want? You want that fast food. You want that greasy food. You want the carbs. You want all of that. Your body's craving it. So again, this is, if you choose to drink, but this is what is happening. So you understand.
So how do you change a culture, right? I mean, how do you, because it's bigger than me, it's bigger than us. It's how do you change a culture? I mean, did you PSAs? I mean, are you constantly, who's going to pay for PSAs? Not the alcohol industry.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking, Judi, when you said, like, or whoever said it was going to be in schools, because that's not going to, they're not going to go back to doing that, right? They've not only seen it fail, but there's so much lobbying behind, education on that area that it is going to fall to something. Like, who is that, Judi? Yeah, I agree.
It's all
us.
the individual people that we affect, because we're modeling it and we're educating and we're doing it, not in a pushy way and not with an outcome. So, you know what? All the nieces, nephews, kids, anybody we come into interaction with, or even the adults who then are choosing to not drink or whatever, then they're teaching somebody else. Like, that's where it is. It just starts with us.
Just being the example of an alternative. Like, it doesn't have, not, somebody might actually see that it's not every single person around them that's drinking. There actually is a person, who's not drinking.
I still tend to think that it's going to follow, as more information comes out, tobacco, but much slower, right? Where it was there was certainly messages that started to come out of like, hey, maybe this isn't all it's cracked up to be, but then less and less people were doing it, like to Kori's point. And then it was like, maybe in a room that used to be 90% people drinking and 1% that, because they were in recovery. Now it's like 50-50, and that 50%'s doing it for health, because they want to be healthier. I think that conversation might help change it, but I like having it more of a health conversation nowadays. But let's go around real quick. What's our takeaway? I think I might have just used mine.
You change the culture one kid at a time.
I can't imagine being a kid nowadays with how I felt as a kid. And I mean, I'm still working through some of the things that we're talking about in terms of the isolation and the loneliness and the things that I felt as a child now were the reasons why I was drinking as an adult. So like, just that sort of thing about, being a kid, and hell, they seem to be way smarter than I was, but and understanding that now would just blows my mind how difficult that is for them.
For me, I think it's just being that example. So actions again would be the biggest thing, and talking about it, being very open to having those conversations, which again turns into education, all of that. Just informing without judgment, I think is important, because growing up, there were no conversations about life, period. Yeah. So again, because again, you feel embarrassed to have that. You don't want to say that, and you don't want to look, but it's like, you know what, just say it. Just be you. Just say how it was. It was hard. This is it.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. I mean, it's being as a parent, like to me, the message is like, work on yourself, right? Work on loving, accepting yourself, so that alcohol isn't the go-to to treat your, your angst, your trauma, your whatever. And then that's going to go so much further for your kid than, having the don't do drugs speech, with them.
And for me, I think it's all of the above, and especially the relationship part. And I'm really thinking about what you said, Kori. You can't teach someone to have a decent relationship if you're not having a decent relationship with yourself. Yep. And so it is one kid at a time, like Jenie says, but we might be that first kid, right? That we have to, I know I have been that first kid. It's like, oh, and now that I am there, more or less, I mean, we always can grow every single day, but now that I am there, now I can move on to child number 2, which might still be me.
Yeah.
I don't know. But it's all relationship. And it starts with
The one with yourself.
cleaning up your own relationship with yourself. So,
Yeah. Wonderful. You guys are the best.
happy week.
Have a lovely, happy week.
Hey, that's it for today's episode. Thank you so much for listening. If something we said resonated, made you laugh, or made you think, we'd love it if you share it with someone who might need it too. And if you're curious about going alcohol-free or just ready to feel more connected to yourself, check out This Naked Mind. Annie's work brought us all together, and we're so grateful for the impact it's had. On that note, a big thank you to Annie Grace and This Naked Mind for making this podcast possible. We'll see you next time on This Naked Chat.